Hello students, so today we're going to go over how to create a menu in HTML and CSS. So I have before me, I'm in Sublime Text. I have the file zen914.html. It has a link to a style sheet, zen914.css. Remember, when I'm in Sublime Text, I have to open the HTML and the CSS separately. Here's the CSS, and it's organized the way that we've organized all of our HTML documents, with the doc type declaration at the top, then the open HTML right below it, and the close HTML at the very bottom of the HTML page. All HTML pages have two main components, a head and a body. Inside the head tag goes things that the browser uses but that the audience, the user, may not interact with. So the UTF-8 char set declaration, which is American English character set, the title, which appears in the tab of the browser, and a link to the style sheet, one or more style sheets. Inside the body, we put the content. The content here is the CSS Zen Garden simplified text. I have used my semantic tags to structure my content. So I have a main tag that is a box that contains all the other boxes of content, because CSS is the box model, and that allows me to put my content in the center of the browser window. Then I have the header specified, the nav, which is what we're going to work on to make the menu, the article, which is the main section of the content, and in the article we have some P's for paragraphs. We have some subheads. So these are P's that have been given special names, class subheads, so that we can style them differently from the rest of the P's so they stand out. I have a picture in here. This picture also has a class associated with, so probably if I want to change the size, or if I want to change the if it's floating or not, I would put a class in this image. And then we have a bunch of P's. There's another subhead, and at the very bottom we close the article. We have the footer, close main, close body, close HTML. So because I'm in Sublime Text, I have previewed this already in my Safari browser, and I can clearly see the boxes of HTML and CSS. So here's the header, here's the nav, here's the article in here, and we can see these red subheads, that's class subheads. This is the picture, this is class woo. Now woo is part of the article, it's part of the HTML. And then at the bottom we have the footer, Zen Garden Simplified 2020. Now, the woo image is part of the HTML, so it interacts with the content. So in order to get this text to wrap around this image, I had to use float. So I assigned a class to my image. So I assigned class woo, and I had it float left. And so this is the result. And so then the text that would have normally appeared underneath it comes up and wraps around it. So compare this to the images that are in the background. I have circle.gif as a background image. Background images, they do not interact with the content, they just appear underneath. And there are several ways that you can style them. We went over them a couple of times in class. But if you're looking for creative ways to style background images, you can Google how to style background images, and that will help you. So here, my image is a single circle. I've had it repeat, and I've made it really small. The actual circle is about this big. Okay, so now we're going to work on the menu. I'm going to show you how to set that up using the ULLI structure, how to style the links, and let's see. All right, so I'm in my HTML. The first thing I'm going to do when I have a menu that I want to style up is I have to start off in the HTML. So in the HTML, I put my links, my menu, inside the nav tag. I always want to put links inside of a nav tag, I mean a menu of links. a series of links inside of a nav tag because that tells the browser and the search engines that this is a menu. All right, so I'm just going to put each of my menu items on a separate line. I don't have to do this technically, but I'm doing it because it just makes it a little bit easier for me to see what I need to do and what I need to work with. So the first issue in setting up a menu is that you need to separate each one of the menu items and make it a separate item. To do that, you need to use some old-fashioned HTML called an unordered list. And there's two parts to the unordered list. The first part is to declare that you're about to create an unordered list, and that's with the UL tag. And then each individual menu item becomes what's called a list item. It gets the list item tag. So let me show you how this works. So here inside the nav, but before my first menu item, I'm going to open the UL unordered list. Okay. Now, before I close the nav and at the end of my menu, I'm going to close the unordered list. The unordered list just says what follows is an unordered list. Okay, now to specify each of the list items, I'm going to use the LI tag. LI stands for list item. So in front of the H in home, I'm going to put an LI tag. And after the E in home, I'm going to close the LI tag. Before the W in W3 school, I'm going to open the LI tag. And at the end of the L in W3 school, I'm going to close the LI tag. Before the Z in Zen Garden, I'm going to open the LI tag. And at the end of N in Zen Garden, I'm going to close it. So you can see the pattern here. Each menu item gets put inside of an LI. LI stands for list item. That's going to help us down the road. We're going to see it. This is the basic HTML structure for a menu. So now I'm going to preview this and see what happens. So I'm going to go back to Safari. So this is before I click the reload button. This was not in a UL or an LI, so all the text just appears one after the other in a straight line. So if I hit reload, then my menu becomes an unordered list. So each item has a bullet in front of it, and it's stacked one on top of each other, flush left. So we don't want to maintain that style. We actually want to put them back so they're horizontal. But the reason why the bullets come in and they're stacked one on top of the other is because some HTML tags, they still have some styling associated with them, even if you just use them in the HTML. So the standard still puts the bullet for each list item in an unordered list, and it stacks them one on top of each other. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go into the CSS. I'm going to wipe out the bullets from the LI and make everything go back into a horizontal display. And then I'm going to, the UL add some padding and some margin, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the CSS. I'm back in Sublime Text. I'm back in the CSS. So I'm going to add two tags. Now I'm going to add UL and LI. So after the nav, I'm going to add UL, and it's a regular tag, so we just type it, and LI. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix the LI styling. So here I'm going to get rid of the bullets, and the bullet property is called list-style. Okay, list-style is the name of the property. And if you're in Dreamweaver and you have the code hints, you'll see a whole bunch of different options for list-style, like square or circle or image. That's how do you want the bullets to appear. We don't get that, unfortunately, in Sublime Text, but let me tell you, if you want to get rid of them, you just set the value on list-style to none. Okay. And if I just do that much and I save it, and then I go back to Safari and I reload my page, I can see that the bullets disappear. So that got rid of the list dash style bullets. Okay, next, I don't want those menu items stacked one on top of each other. I want a horizontal menu. So to do that, I have to modify a property called display. And there's two main display properties. One is block, which stacks things one on top of each other flush left, and the other is inline, where they all appear in a line together. So I need to put this back into inline display. So here I'm going to set the display value to inline. And again, if you're in Dreamweaver, you're going to see a whole bunch of different options for inline and block, but the main two ones are block and inline. And today we're just using inline. Once again, if I preview this, okay, there we go. We're pretty much back where we started from. I'm going to do a couple more things. First of all, I'm going to get rid of the extra padding and margin that the UL brought in. So UL brought in some extra padding and margin. You can see how this is a little fatter than it was. So I'm going to go back to the CSS, and in the UL I'm going to say padding 0, margin 0. When you're setting things like padding and margin to 0, you don't need to use percentages. You can just use the number 0. Okay, I'm going to reload. You're going to see this snap back to its original shape. And there we go. Now we are pretty much back to the place we were at the beginning. So you may be thinking, why did we go through all that problem, all that trouble? Well, because we needed to separate these. So the first thing that we can do into separate list items, the first thing that we can do is we can increase the spacing between the individual menu items. So we want to put some space between home and W3 school, between W3 school and Zen Garden, and between Zen Garden and design code wrap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add padding right at the end of the LI. So each of these are in an LI. If I add padding right 5%, that should scooch them down along the line. So I'm going to go back to my CSS, and here in the LI, I'm going to say padding right. In this case, I definitely want to put it on the right side. I'm going to say 5%. So I added 5% of padding to the right side, and there we go. Very nice. Now sometimes you will have a problem. I don't seem to have it here, but since we have 5% of padding over here on design code wrap, here, let me make it a problem. There we go. So I have 5% of padding here, even though I can see that I could put the letters RAP up here without this wrapping, W-R-A-P-P-I-N-G. But the reason why it's going down to the next line is because it's the word wrap plus 5% of padding. So if I could get rid of the padding right, just on this last design code wrap, just on the last item here, then that will help prevent this from wrapping W-R-A-P-P-I-N-G, going down to the next line. Okay, so in CSS, the way to do this is you can use what's called a pseudo class. So anytime you have, for example, things that are in a series, so list items, there's usually a bunch of them. You can specify, okay, apply this only to the first version of LI, or to the last LI, or to something in the middle. The name of that pseudocode is called last.child-child or first-child. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the CSS, and we're going to say, okay, when you get to the last child of LI, of the LI tag, get rid of the 5% padding on the right, because we want to keep the 5% padding by home, W3 school, and Zen Garden. Okay, I'm going to go to the CSS. We're going to see how this works. Again, this is a pseudo class. So the tag is LI. That means this is going to apply to the LI tag. Then, since I'm using a pseudo class, I follow the LI by a colon, and then I tell it which pseudo class I want. So in this case, it's last-child. That means the last instance of the LI. And here I'm going to say padding right, set it to 0. So this is only going to impact the last LI. So, which means design code wrap. It's not going to impact the Zen garden. It's not going to impact the home because those are not the last. This is the last one. So let's see if I reload this. Oh, beautiful. There it is. I have now gotten rid of the 5% padding right just on design code wrap. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add links to our menu items. So I'm going to go back to the HTML. You put the links in the HTML. It's considered part of the content. And what we're going to do is we're going to, inside the nav, inside the LI, so each of these bits of text are a link. So, for example, when the user comes to this page and they see W3 School, I want them to be able to click on that and go to the W3 Schools page. So to make that happen, I'm just going to, first of all, I'm going to go load the W3 School page. There we go. Because I want this URL up here. I'm going to grab the URL at the top. I'm going to copy it. Now I'm going to come over here. I have that in my paste buffer. I have my URL for W3 Schools in my paste buffer. Now I'm going to add the link. So the link uses an A tag. The name of the tag is A. A stands for anchor. Don't ask me why they called it that, but that's what they did. So there's a couple things I want to put in here. First of all, I have to open the A tag. Then I have to tell it what to link to. So the way I do that is I say href. Href means hypertextual reference. I say href equal quote, and then I'm going to paste in the URL for W3 School. I'm going to close the quote, and I'm going to close that little open A tag there. So when I'm done, on that line, line 17, it says open li, open A, href equal quote, https www3schools.com, close quote, and then we're closing the open A tag. And then at the end of W3 School, I want to make sure to close the A tag itself. If I fail to close this, I'm going to make a link out of everything after my open A tag. So you want to make sure you close your A tag. All right, so let's see what that looks like. I put in the A tag, href equals, and then this is the URL for W3 School. And then we closed our A tag, closed the LI. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, very exciting. There it is, W3 School. If I click on it, it takes me to W3 School. Now notice it does replace my menu, my page here, which maybe I don't want to do that. We'll figure out how to add that in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and add the A tags for the Zen Garden and the design code wrap and the home, which I'll tell you how to do. So first I'm going to go get the Zen Garden. So I'm going to go here out onto the web, and I'm going to say CSS Zen Garden. Oh, there it is, CSS Zen Garden, the beauty of CSS design. And I'm going to go here and grab the URL. I'm going to come back to the HTML. So I have the Zen Garden URL in my paste buffer. And after the LI, but before the Z in Zen Garden, I'm going to open the A tag. I'm going to say href equal quote. I'm going to paste in the URL. I'm going to close that open A tag. And then after the N in Zen Garden, I'm going to put a close A. That will limit the link to the words Zen Garden on my page. So you can see these two things, they have exactly the same format. It's the A tag followed by href, followed by the URL, followed by the close open tag, and then the text that you want to be a link, and then close A. All right, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to reload this. There it is. So now if I click on Zen Garden, it takes me to the Zen Garden. Again, it replaces my content, which maybe I don't want. If I click on W3 School, it still takes me to the W3 School. Okay. Now I'm going to do design code wrap. So I'm going to search for design code wrap. There he is, our friend Chuck. right, I'm going to grab the URL. Sorry, Chuck. Goodbye. So I have Chuck's, I have the design code wrap URL in my paste buffer. So here, before the Word design code wrap, but after the open LI, I'm going to open the A. Then I'm going to do space, and then href equal quote. I'm going to paste the URL to design code wrap, close quote, and then close open A. So now let me show you what happens if I fail to close my A tag here. It's kind of painful. All right, so I'm purposefully, I'm going to come back and put the close A here, but I'm going to show you what happens. So I'm going to save. Hello, thank you for trying Sublime Text. No, thank you. Save. Save. So here, remember I did not close my A tag. So, look at that. Oh my God, my whole screen is a link. This is definitely what I do not want. So let me go back to my HTML, and here I open my link. There it says design code wrap, but I did not close my A tag. There we go. Now I closed it. Now if I go back and I reload, there we go. And again, if I click here, it takes me to Chuck. All right, one last thing we're going to do. So we have the basic structure here, li, a, href, close A, close li. So we wanted to make it so that when the links open up in the window, it opens up in a new window. We don't want it replacing our content. We always want our content there. So the way to do that is inside the A tag, you're going to use an element called target. And target means which window would you like this to open in? Now, Dreamweaver will give you some suggestions for target, like underscore self, underscore blank, underscore parent. I don't like to use those because I like to give my target, my window, a specific name. Computers love names. So that the links, they always open in the same window. So I'm not forcing the user to open a whole bunch of windows every time they click on a link. So this is how it works. Target equals, and then I put in the quote mark, and then it just wants a name. You can name this window anything you want. You could call it Ice Cream Sundae, my cat Pistachio, but I like to name things after what they kind of do. So I'm going to call this links, and I'm going to do the same for the Zen Garden. So inside the A tag here, after the URL, but before the closing of the open tag, I'm going to say target equals links, and the same for design code wrap. Target equals links. Okay, now because these all have the same name, they're all going to open in the same window, but it's not going to be the window that my content is sitting in, which is what I want. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to reload, and if I click W3 School, oh look, it opened over here. Let me click out of here. And if I go to Zen Garden, oh look, it's in the same window that where I opened W3 School. And design code wrap, oh look, it's in the same window. Sorry, Chuck. Okay, there we go. So that's exactly what I want. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to add the link to home. I realize I forgot that. In this case, home is actually this page. Or if you're in a large site, it might be a different page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same structure. I'm just going to link this page to itself. How am I going to do that? So I'm going to go back to the HTML. Here in front of home, there's two ways I can do it. I can do a href equal quote. And because I know the name of this file is zen914.html, I can just do that. Oh, buddy, I have a cat who wants to jump up. Okay. Or I can just use a hashtag. A hashtag is a placeholder. So if I do this, same thing, nothing happens. This is the same file. But I'm going to use the file name. And if you have multiple pages for your website in the same folder, this is how you would link them one to the other. You would just use the name of the file. You don't need to use the the direct URL. Okay. All right, and if we look at that now, we'll see now the home is underlined. Here we go. Okay. All right, one last thing I'm going to show. I'm going to show you how to style your links. So when you have links in your HTML page, they have 4 states. They have link, which is what it looks like when the page loads. They have visited, which is, I'm sorry, there's a cat here. That's why I'm laughing. They have visited, which is what the link looks like when it has been visited. It has hover, which is what the link looks like when it's rolled over. And it has active, which is what the link looks like once when the mouse is clicking down upon it. So here, by default, in most browsers, the regular link color is blue and underlined. Now, these are all purple and underlined because that's the default for visited, and we have visited all of these. So hover doesn't have a huge effect in most browsers by default. Notice that my cursor changes. So here I'm in the article, I'm not rolling over anything, my cursor is a pointer. The minute I roll over Zen Garden, it becomes a finger. So pointer, finger. That's the hover effect. And then when I click on something like this, when the mouse is actively down upon it, this is called the active state. By default in HTML, it's red. Now the reason why I'm clicking on this and it's turning red and not doing anything is that in order to get to a link, there's actually 2 actions. There is the mouse down and then the lift up on the mouse. So it's a full mouse down, mouse up action. Okay, so we're going to design this something other than these sort of ugly default colors. To do that, we have to go to the CSS and we have to use the pseudo classes. So I'm going to go to the CSS, and although I'm going to be styling up the A tag with some pseudo classes, generally speaking, when I do link pseudo classes, I don't always put them in the order that they appear in the HTML document. I like to keep them at the bottom because I like to keep an eye on them. Sometimes it's problematic, especially if you have multiple menus that you have to style differently. So I just like to have them in an easily accessible place. All right, so I'm going to style up my links. Again, I'm going to use pseudo classes to style the 4 separate states. The 4 separate states are link, visited, hover, and active. This is how you write them. So it's the A tag followed by a colon indicating this is a pseudo class, and then link. And what that is, this style is for what does the link look like when the page first loads. The next one is a visited, and that says what does the link look like after the user has visited this link. The next one is a hover. Oops, notice there's no spaces here. And this is what does the link look like when the mouse is rolling over it. And then a active. And this is what does the link look like when the user is clicking down upon it. All right, so the 4 states of the link. So the first one I'm going to do is, generally speaking, a lot of times you don't include the underline when the page loads in the A link. So I'm going to get rid of the default underline. So to do that, the underline is brought in by something called text-decoration. There it is. And there's a few properties, those of you who are using Dreamweaver will see. But to get rid of the underline, I'm just going to say none. Okay. And now if I just reload with that, you can see now my underlines have gone. But now I don't have a good cue that these are menus or link menu items. So what I like to do then is I like to bring the underline back on the hover. So I'm going to go back to the CSS and bring the underline back on a hover, meaning when the mouse rolls over it. So I'm in the CSS and I'm going to say text-decoration and I'm going to say underline. So now when I hover over the text, I should get the underline back. So I'm going to reload. Oh, very nice. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so the next thing is I don't like the default colors. I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to think of a great color to put up here. I'm just going to put some colors in. So I want to put a different default color in the link. So I'm going to change the color to something else, a named color. Maybe, how about deep pink? So for a link, I'm going to set this to color, and I happen to know the named color deep pink. All right, it's not going to be beautiful with this presentation. If you have Dreamweaver, you can use the color picker. So I'm going to reload, and notice that I don't have deep pink. I don't have deep pink because we are no longer in the a link state for these links. They've all been visited. So what I need to do in order to get out of the purple, I need to assign a color for a visited. And so what I'm going to do, what I usually like to do, I like to use the same color for a visited that I used for a link. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, and on a visited, I'm going to say color deep pink. So now the visited color should be that deep pink, which is going to look hideous. Oh my gosh, it's so ugly. Actually, it's not. It is pretty hideous. It clashes. But it is pink instead of the default purple. Okay, another thing I can do is when I roll over, in addition to making the underline come back, I can make the, I can change the color. So on a hover, I'm going to change the text color to chartreuse, which is a lime green. That's going to be really hideous. So if I reload, oh my goodness, oh, it's hard to read. Okay, so I can also, in any of these states, I'm going to do it in hover though. It's really hard to see this. So I'm going to add a background color to the hover state. I'm going to use the deep pink as the background color. Won't that be really hideous? All right, so I'm going to say unhover background color deep pink. Whoa, that's actually not too hideous considering. Now I can also add padding here. I'm going to show you how to add padding because I don't like anything but up against anything, text up against edges. I'm going to show you how to do it. It goes in a special place. So first I'm like, okay, I want to add my padding on hover. I'm going to say padding, let's say 1%. Because I want the background color to appear on hover, but that's going to give me a little bit of a problem. I'm going to show you how that works. So I've reloaded, and oh, so I do get beautiful padding, but notice how it makes the rest of my menu items move. I don't want that. It's moving because it's suddenly adding extra padding, and the rest of the content has to get out of the way. So the secret to doing this is not to add the padding here, but to add it either in a link. I think it works in a link. All right, that's gonna, yeah. Right, if you add it in a link, then it understands that the padding is already in the link state. And you may need to do some modification to your padding right that you added on your LI, but you get the idea. You can do a bunch of different styles. Okay, one last thing to style is what happens when you click, what happens on A active. So one of the things I like to do on A active is I like to make the letters disappear. So the way I make them disappear is I set the color, the text color, to the same color as the background color. So in this case, this is the color, this is the background color of the nav. So let me try that. I'm going to go to the CSS, I'm going to find the background color of the nav, and I'm going to set the color of the text in A active to that color. Let's see if we can get the text to disappear. All right, so I'm going to go to the nav. Here's the background color. I'm going to copy it. And in A active, I'm going to set that to the color. Let's see if this works. So this is the background color of the nav. So let's see. Okay, now it kind of worked. It set the color of the text to that color, which may be enough for me, but it kept the background color of the hover state, and that's because these states, link, visited, hover, active, they kind of stack one on top of each other. So whatever was in hover, unless it gets changed, it doesn't really change here. So I'm going to set the background color in hover to the same color, that same color. So here I have color set to this. I'm going to say background color. Set it to the same thing. This will make it seem to disappear. Okay, I'm going to reload. Zen Garden. Oh my gosh, it's gone! It hasn't really gone. It's just that I changed everything to be the color of the nav, so it looks like it has disappeared. All right, so that's basic menu styling. I'm going to create a separate video on how to do vertical menus and some positioning, but I might do that next week. But this should be enough to get you through the menu styling for the Zen Garden. All right, everybody, so good luck.